Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for spending a few minutes of your day here with us at the 6th Floor Museum at Dealey Plaza. I'm Stephen Fagin, the curator, and this program is called Living History. It's an extension of our oral history project, and it complements our exhibit, Colorful Memories, November 22nd Through a Child's Eyes. This year, our Living History series is featuring childhood recollections of President Kennedy and the assassination, and today is actually the kickoff to this series, so you picked a great day to visit the museum, and I am here with two of my favorite people. We have not done a program together in 6 years, and because of the pandemic it feels like 25 years since we've been together, but we have with us Dr. Betty Duke-Ruhd and Jan Sittel, and both of these ladies saw President Kennedy on November 22nd, 1963. They have an extraordinary story to tell, so I hope you will join me in welcoming our special guests for their living history. Betty, Jan, we're gonna rip the Band-Aid right off and show these folks what you looked like back in 1963.
Oh yeah, thank you.
Seated, pictured as they are seated, we have Betty and Jan there in the pictures. As you can see, they were both juniors at the time at Thomas Jefferson High School in Dallas. How long have the two of you been friends?
Since 62. Since 62. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I understand you guys watched the moon landing together in 1969.
We did.
So we're talking to two very longtime friends today.
And we saw the Beatles together.
Oh, I know. We're gonna get to that. We're gonna get to that.
Oh, okay.
Here in Dallas in 1964. That's wonderful. We're gonna talk about that at the very end, so stick around. But Betty, I want to draw special attention to your hair in this picture because, as I understand it, you had the tallest hair in your senior yearbook.
I did. I went through page by page. There were 965 people in our graduating class at TJ that year, and I'm going through and I'm going, oh, there. And then there was one that was taller, but she was wearing a wiglet. No, that doesn't count. And ratting and teasing my hair all those years, you can see how thin it's gotten on top.
Now, Betty, for folks like myself who will never have hair that tall, how would you prepare something like that? I understand there was a little process that you used.
Oh yeah. Well, my mom wrapped her hair in toilet paper so it wouldn't squish down. But all I remember doing basically is wearing the oh my God, those curlers that had the spikes in them, you know, the medieval spikes, and you take them out and then you comb back, rat, and then take the, but I thought it was cool.
Right.
Thank you.
So 1963, John F. Kennedy. Jan, give us a sense of what President and Mrs. Kennedy meant to young people like yourselves at that time.
Well, they were such a change from what we had known ever since we were born. The presidents were older, and the wives were not especially showy like Jackie. And it was just a new lease on government, on what you could expect from the government, seeing someone active and communicating, and it was a good change.
Yeah. And both of you were pretty excited to see President Kennedy on November 22nd.
Definitely.
You were not together, though. Your stories are actually very different. Jan, you went out to Love Field, so we're going to go chronologically. We actually have a great photograph from Love Field, and if you look in the center of this picture, smiling with her glasses right into the camera, that is Jan Sittel there at Love Field that day. Jan, what made you decide to go to the airport that day of all the different places you could have gone?
Because it was so convenient to school. Our parents sent notes to Thomas Jefferson saying that they agreed that we could cut class that morning, which was something that you never did. And it was just like a 20-minute, maybe 25-minute drive to the airport. And myself and several other friends, we decided to do it. We wanted to see the president. He was going to be that close. And it was just something to put into the history books.
You were out there with about 4,000 people, and yet you managed to get, as we can see in this photograph, right up to the edge of the fence, as close as you possibly could. How early did you get there for that?
The mother picked us up at the airport at about 8 o'clock. We got to the airport and were on the fence about 8:30. Mm-hmm. And when we got there were maybe like 10, 20 people there. So we just spread out along the fence. And we were standing and waiting, and there was 3 hours because the Air Force One wasn't coming until 11:30. So we were just waiting, and we got rained on. It wasn't a hard rain, but it just rained. And then people were just coming. It was just, you'd be standing around talking, and all of a sudden you're surrounded by all these people. And you could tell that there was excitement, there was anticipation, and we just were glad we were there.
You are holding a sign in this picture all the way with Jack, and then it says Grassroots Dem, meaning Grassroots Democrats. That is not a sign that you made or brought with you. How did you get that sign?
Well, when after it rained and we were just standing around, first I looked back on the top of the terminal, and I saw a policeman up there with a rifle, and I thought, wow, they're going to keep the president safe. And then on the tarmac, a car drove up, and some people got out, and they had loads of signs, and they were just passing them out to everybody that they could reach. So I was able to get one.
And it's a very special sign to this museum because Jan saved that sign, and it is now part of our collection here at the museum. It's the only original sign we have from Dallas Love Field. We're so grateful to Jan, who kept it in immaculate condition all of these years. We just recently, in the last year, had it on display here on our 7th floor. If you want to take a closer look at it, you can go to our website, jfk.org. It's part of our collections database. Jan, in addition to the sign, I'm going to go back to the picture, you also donated the coat you were wearing that day, and it had a special collar. Tell us about that collar.
It had a coonskin collar because early 60s, late 50s, Davy Crockett and his coonskin cap was the thing. So you got coonskins.
So all the raccoon pelts not used for the hats were then incorporated into jackets. So what remarkable artifacts you saved from your experience there. Air Force One lands, the Kennedys disembark. You're a junior in high school. Tell us about that moment as they make their way down the fence line. What did that mean to you?
Well, first, before they got off the plane, my friends that I was with and I realized that the adults, all these adults that were coming inside the fence, were elbowing us out of our space on the fence. So we decided, well, phooey, we've been out here 3 hours. We had started elbowing our way back on the fence. So we were able to do that, but to do that, we had to spread way down the fence. So I was kind of by myself when things settled down. But Air Force One landed in the wing, sort of came right over us. And they rolled the stairs out, opened the door, and Jackie came out first. And she looked fantastic. And then after her, the president came out. And the sun was shining, and one of the first things you noticed was the color of his hair. Because back then, it was black and white TV, it was black and white pictures, you didn't know. And we just gasped. I mean, my gosh, he had like sandy hair. So that made a difference. And so they came on down and they went to a stand that had been set up, a welcoming committee there at the airport. And while they were standing there, LBJ and Lady Bird walked up. And the welcoming committee had their roses. They gave Jackie red roses and gave Lady Bird yellow roses. And meanwhile, the 2 limos had driven up that would start the motorcade. So after everything was finished with the welcoming committee, they were walking towards the limos. And all this time, ever since they'd been off the plane, everybody in that crowd were jumping up and down, yelling, screaming. It never stopped. It just was incredible. So the president broke off and came back to the fence down close to where the welcoming committee had been and started shaking hands. And when he did that, the crowd just surged, and everybody at the fence went double over that fence. And you're just thinking, please, fence, don't fall, don't fall. And it didn't, thank goodness. But we were able to pull back up gradually. And you could see the president coming down the fence, and he was smiling. He was so happy. He was obviously enjoying it. It was like he was giving his approval to us of the approval we had been giving to him with all the cheering and the yelling. So he came on down, and I mean, I'm kind of tall, and I could look right at him, just right in front of me, and shook his hand. And when he would get close to you, all these hands and arms would would just come by your face, and it was that was incredible. And he was shaking as many as he could, and going on down. The president was going down to his left, and I noticed immediately on his right there was a man following him. And he had a grim look on his face. I mean, he was just gritting his teeth. And he was looking down in front of the president. So I looked down, and he had his hand in a fist and his arm between the president and the fence. So if anybody along the fence tried to do something, he was there.
Perfect.
So that was something.
Yeah.
But they moved on down, and then Jackie came, and everybody, the whole time, everybody was yelling, "Welcome to Texas, welcome to Dallas, great to see you." I mean, it never stopped. And Jackie was saying, thank you, and taking as many hands as she could. And then LBJ came down, and people started saying, welcome home. And he was saying, thank you, and shaking as many hands. And then Lady Bird came, and she was doing the same thing, saying, thank you, and shaking all the hands. And the jumping up and down, the yelling, the shouting never stopped. Never stopped. And then the president and Jackie got down to where their limo was, and they broke off from the crowd and got in their limo. LBJ and Lady Bird were able to go farther down and then get in their limo.
We're going to come back to your story a little bit later when you heard the news from Dealey Plaza, but this is the point in the story where you pick up, because the motorcade begins the 10-mile progression through Dallas, and you are waiting on Lemmon Avenue.
Right. And back in that time, Lemmon Avenue was a double-lane street. It's so different now. And we were waiting at Lemmon Avenue in Oak Lawn, and it was beautiful. Like Jan said, the sun was out, And so when the motorcade was kind of coming, well, let me back up a little bit. My dad got up at 4 o'clock. The Dallas Morning News had a big spread of the motorcade route. And he's got his pencil, drinking coffee, and he's saying, I think we ought to go there, we ought to go there. And he had figured out the best place for us to stand. It was not likely to be as congested as downtown. So there were a few people along Lemmon Avenue, but back to real time, lots of live oak trees, and then the motorcade, there were the motorcycle cops, and then the motorcade with the Kennedys and John Connolly and Nellie and all, and my mouth flew open because I remembered that hair thing. That was the first thing I remembered, that he was very young looking and his hair was beautiful. I couldn't even believe it. It sparkled in the sunlight. Well, in the meantime, up the street, up Bucklawn, is Holy Trinity Catholic Church. And the priest, Hubert, who ended up being the priest that gave JFK his last rites. That's, I think, incredible. And they had brought all the children from the school to Lemmon Avenue, and the nuns were there, and they had them stair-stepped like that. Little bitty kids down here, and then the older kids like that. Well, that was too cute. So when the Kennedys went by in the motorcade, well, Jackie was about out of her chair. She was just like, oh, look at the kids and everything. And I'm going, crap. I thought, I can't even see the president. So as close as I am to the front row here was where the motorcade was. And I was getting madder and madder and madder. And I'm a high-strung person anyway. And I said, got to get their attention and stuff. And I said, President Kennedy! You know, I screamed it out. He was like this far away. And he turned around and he smiled and he said, hi, how are you? And I'm just clutching my heart. I went, this is it, you know. And so they went on by, and then I thought it was very fascinating that President Kennedy was given the last rites by the Father Hubert, and who is a real character. You ought to read up on him. And so we're just like that. So my sister had to go back to class. She was at SMU. My mom had to go somewhere. And so Dad took me, and we went to lunch at Wyatt's Cafeteria on Lover's Lane on the Miracle Mile. We're sitting there. We're having our lunch. And this woman comes in screaming, President Kennedy's been stabbed. And we go, oh my God. So we very calmly put down our utensils, walked out the door, and then wandered around the parking lot for a good 10 minutes because we couldn't remember where the car was. We were in shock, total shock. And then we got home in time. I think we were home about 10 minutes maybe to see Walter Cronkite say, you know, he took off his glasses and he said, he was going like this, and he said, at 12:57 or 1:57, the president was declared deceased. He cleared his throat. Of course, we were just in shock, and we had not seen any of the scenes from Dealey Plaza or anything like that. And so that, I just wanted to tell you something. That feeling of despair, uncertainty, shock, anxiety has haunted me my entire life. And those of you that are of a certain age will say, depending on where you were and what your political background was, it had a very moving thing. And that went on for weeks. It went through the Sunday when Oswald was shot. It went through all that time. And it took us, and Jan and I have a theory about it, but it took us months to get over being in shock. Should I tell our story about, for Jan and me, we got out of our shock when the Beatles came to town. And really a lot of the historians that have chronicled 1963 and 1964 said that when the Beatles came to the United States, the blanket of mourning and despair kind of came off the American people. The parents were all mad, and the kids were all just excited as get up. But I'm surprised I haven't bawled my eyes out just recalling that, because it is an amazing feeling. And I thought, how can I tell you guys what that was like? I've lost both my parents. I have never, ever felt despair like that.
Your story is incredible, because we think about the motorcade and we think about thousands of people on the roofs of buildings, 8 people deep on the sidewalks, but you're thinking about Main Street, that canyon that the motorcade came down. But early in the parade, as you can see in this photograph, it was certainly possible for people to have very intimate personal encounters with the Kennedys as the motorcade is going through residential areas. People could be standing at their kitchen window and literally watch President Kennedy's parade go by that day. Both of you had such unique experiences. Jan getting to touch the president, you getting to yell at the president.
Yes.
Jan, let's circle back to you. We left you at Love Field. How did you find out the news?
Well, after the motorcade left, everyone started leaving the fenced area. So the mother that brought us picked us up and took us to their house for lunch, and then we were going to go back to school. So we got in the car. We didn't turn the radio on. And this would have been after 12 noon when we were first going back to the house. So it took us a while because the traffic was so bad coming out of the airport. But we were just talking and just sharing stories and everything. My friends that were farther down the fence were able to shake hands with LBJ, but Kennedy had cut off for the limo before it got to them. And one of my friends said they really wished they had shaken a president's hand. So, but we were just talking and just having a good time. Got to their house, parked the car, and my friend's grandmother came running out of the house and just yelled, "The president's been shot." And this person that we had just seen up close, happy, showing us he was happy, that we were happy, it was indescribable. So we ran in the house and just spread out in front of the TV and watched. And there were local correspondents talking on TV, and then they would go to the major ones on the major stations. And Cronkite came on and said the president had died. And we were, after just seeing him, just seeing his positiveness, his spirit, his caring, it was, and then he was dead. We were 16 years old, and that was a little bit to swallow. So we kept watching TV, and then they said that the president's casket was put back on Air Force One, And LBJ was going back on Air Force One. And Judge Sarah T. Hughes came on and gave LBJ his oath of office and next president. And one of us, I don't remember who, said to the person who said they wished they had shaken a president's hand, said, "You shook a president's hand," because they were able to shake LBJ's hand at the airport.
Mm-hmm.
That was just incredible.
Do you share Betty's sentiment that this was a generation-defining moment that has stayed with you?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's a good way to describe it.
Betty, give us a sense as Dallas high school students, in the aftermath of the assassination, what did it mean to be from Dallas as far as the world was concerned?
Well, Dallas was blamed for the assassination, and a lot of it stemmed from the fact that there was so much rancor and horrible things that were being said and done in the Dallas area. The John Birch Society had plastered big signs about, impeach Earl Warren, who was our Supreme Court Justice, Supreme Court head, and there were full-page ads in the paper about, Kennedy must go, and even in our own high school class, there was a big vocal group of stupid boys that were laughing and talking about, "Oh, he's dead. And then I was in marching band, and our stupid drum line decided to do the cadence that was used during the funeral procession. And I thought, don't you have any taste? Don't you have any reality about what this means? So I think that there was a group of people that were probably glad, I hate to say, but then 90% probably of the Dallasites were like we were, just forlorn and horribly, horribly, horribly sad. Mm-hmm. But it was a mixed bag, I must tell you that.
They closed all the schools that day, closed all the businesses. They closed Dallas that day.
Yeah. And it stayed that way at least through the funeral on Monday. Yeah.
It did.
Rather than do a formal Q&A, we're going to conclude the program, and if you want to ask our guests any questions, or if you want to shake hands with someone who shook hands with President Kennedy, I understand you've not washed your hand. You've not washed your hand since 1963. But I hope you will join me. It's powerful recollections like these that really define the moment in the memory of the assassination. I'm so glad you guys could be with us today. Please join me in thanking our special guests.
Thank you. Thank you so much.